What's up, guys? Mike Lewis here, and welcome to the Mike Lewis podcast. If you guys want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lewis Official, and you can follow me on Twitter at MikeLew52. It's where most of my updates come. If you're enjoying my content, give me a like and a subscribe. And without further ado, let's just dive right into this episode. Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode, and allow me to introduce my guest. You might remember her from that show, Real World Seattle, Bad Blood. Anna, how are we doing today?
Hi, good. How about yourself?
Hanging in there, it's same old summer, nothing too out of the ordinary, just, living, and, it's a pleasure meeting you. How are you doing?
I say life, and how am I doing? There's so many emotions. Life is like a roller coaster. You gotta just go along for the ride.
How has this past year with all the crazy adjustments been for you?
Honestly, adjustments. I was one of those people before that, kind of self-isolated and, was big on not saying social distancing. But after the real world, I went into the field of genetics. And within the field of genetics, you're working with doctors' offices. So I was in and out of doctors' offices all the time and just really hyper aware of, your exposure to bacteria and pathogens. So I was actually kind of excited that the rest of the world got the education on how really honestly gross that we live. So
you'd say you've been a bit of a homebody for a while?
Yeah. And others would call me a party girl, but I really truly am a homebody at heart.
Yeah, I definitely say that there's a lot of people that post coming out of COVID have went from being a party person to then since becoming homebodies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. During the pandemic, I don't even know if this is a good thing to say, but or the response that I'll get from it. But I, during COVID in Orlando, the number 2 industry in Orlando is tourism, and we have an amazing, community, music industry. And one of the things that I did was I call it a warehouse, it's essentially what it was. But, when the whole world would shut down, like we would have, the same pretty much people, 250 people come together Friday and Saturday nights and, keep the industry alive. And Orlando is literally the top music industry in the country, if not the world at this moment in time. So, wow. Yeah.
So what have you been up to these days?
The current days are what I do during the day is I'm finishing up a coding class that I took, getting certified in computational data analysis and visualization at UCF. I finish next week. I went to school to learn how to code and build databases and pretty much conduct social impact studies. For the last year and a half, I've been working on putting together an opportunity zone fund. We are creating a space and a place for those with special needs, Down syndrome, autism, to be able to live, work, and thrive, integrate into our society. And my role was, fundraising, and part of the fundraising was $70,000 for a social impact fund. And I just knew, I went to school for sociology. A lot of it, sociology is the study of people and the construct of our society. So I could save us $70K by doing this social impact study ourselves. And also I knew moving forward with autism, a lot of everything is senses, sensory environments, creating an environment where have you ever heard of biofeedback? Basically, yeah. And a lot of this is data that we need to be able to study. I don't know if I mentioned on camera that, I worked in the field of genetics. I did, but what my role was in genetics was basically genetic testing. So with just a cheek swab, you'd let somebody know how they metabolize their medications. And from there, I learned that, people who are taking medications, it's a very small percentage of our population who's actually supposed to take medications. And before medications go to market, they go against the placebo effect. So a trial, the placebo, trial effect, whatever. And 90% of the time, your body's natural healing process does a better job than the medication. And it's your body's natural ability to heal itself. And through that, it's your senses. So I knew, and 90% of the illnesses that we experience in our environment are through our senses. 90% of the growth that we have are through our 90% of our illnesses that we experience are through our environments, not through our senses. But it is, perceived through our senses. Your skin is your body's largest organ. So your senses and your sight, as in your vision, your taste, your feeling, vibration. So creating these sensory environments were really important to me, and I know it's really truly the only way that we can evolve as a society in order to be able to create our own environments. So I'm going to take a break.
That was you did a good job in-depthly explaining that. Seems like you've been quite busy then the last however so long you've been up to this.
To say the least, it's been, ever since the real world, pretty much, I was 27 when I got into genetics, and I'm 30 now. I want to say it's almost 4 years. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I want to shift now, though, into kind of your time on TV.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I want to ask about the casting process, obviously, because we saw Katrina, who's your sister. Obviously, she started out on the original group of people that was moving into the house, and then the whole theme of the show, which was Bad Blood, of course. You were labeled one of the Bad Bloods being brought in, and I'm curious how that process went for you, because usually your stereotypical real-world season, people send in auditions or show up to open casting calls to try out. I'm curious how your process went, since you were brought in obviously later. Did you actively try out, or did they, seek you out?
So what I will say is that I did, a lot of other people grew up watching The Real World. And when I turned 26, which was that year, I remember telling myself aloud, you can't go on The Real World anymore. And I literally remember that distinctly, because I really just truly believe I've had every opportunity open and available to me. And it was for the first time in my life, telling myself I couldn't do something. And, I got a call. I was in Costa Rica at the time, and they said, do you want to go on a TV show called Road Rules? And my sister was already in the Real World casting process. I'll touch on how she got casted too. And, so that's how the casting process was for me. I was called out of basically the middle of nowhere while I was in another country. Road Rules was, a spinoff of Real World, where strangers traveled within a van and they competed. And, I was literally in Costa Rica at the time, and I was like, well, I'll get paid to travel essentially. And, I'm pretty athletic and I like a challenge. So I thought it would be okay. And then that's obviously not the case. My sister, she actually went to the open casting here in Orlando. There was 700 people there. She was number 400, and she was literally just walking out. She was like, I'm not doing this. If you know Katrina, she does not have an ounce of patience in her body. And the casting director stopped her and was like, where are you going? And she's like, I'm leaving, and this is a lot. And they're like, we're going to start with you then. And she knew from the get-go that Katrina was casted. I'm pretty sure that Katrina, we actually were in the house and we're going back in the dates and figured out that Katrina was the first person that was casted for The Real World. And I think that they wanted the close dynamic. They knew instantly after, speaking to Katrina, Katrina and I were, growing up, we're 14 months apart, so we're incredibly close. And as far as sisters, I don't think that you have, as close as a sister dynamic that we had growing up. And so when they said bad, it wasn't like they were like, oh, we're casting for the Bad Blood. It was basically the season was over. We're meeting with the producers as we're finished filming, and they release us what the title of the show is going to be called. And I remember hearing it, and I remember just being shocked and hurt, and just thinking Bad Blood, because they tried to cast other people and that were blood related, Theo and Cass were cousins. And I think from there, just whatever was available, whatever they thought would be the best TV and the character dynamics that they placed. But, I know that they were actually seeking family members. And, but Katrina and I were the only siblings in the house. So that's, I don't know, as far as the casting process, what kind of got sidetracked there. So if you want to stop me and interject.
So did you particularly try out at all, or did they just call you out of the blue?
No, I did not try out. I mean, they wanted me. Katrina, once they spoke with Katrina, they knew instantly that, that she's not going on the show without anybody besides her sister. She's in the relationship that we have is just, I mean, we're extremely close. We were extremely close. Katrina and I mean, our relationship, especially on the Real World too, afterwards, just amplified, a lot of the issues that we had. The main one being, our inability to communicate in a healthy way, and then also, Katrina and I are completely different when it comes to criticism, for ourselves and from others. And I think when you're put on like a platform like the Real World and you're subjected to the opinions of, Blow Joe and Oklahoma, that bothered her. Somebody could really, say something mean to her and it would bug her all day long. For me, I almost had fun with it. And for her, it was just not the same.
So would you say that you guys were at that time and period of time, bad blood, so to speak, or like did?
I mean, I wouldn't call ourselves bad blood, but the relationship that I have with my sister is completely different from the perception that she has of the relationship that we have. I'm the older sister, so I always grew up with like a motherly instinct and role for Katrina. And, our plan growing up was that I was going to stay home a year and, wait for her to graduate high school and we'd go to college together. And it turned out that I graduated a year early. So she almost feels as if I like had abandoned her in a way. And I will say too, that Katrina almost has like a victim mentality. And I think that's because, for her entire life, she's always had such a supportive family and that we've been there for her and in every moment. So she's never really had to, have like essentially like that growing up time that most of us experience, and to understand that it's not just the, your world that, and really truly at the end of the day, all we have is ourselves. So I think it's, and then after the world, it didn't get even, she just never had that time.
Yeah. And I think like, when we think of the theme of that season and like what storylines really like translated in terms of like, both from an entertainment standpoint and then, what the plot line of the season, I'd say that like your guys' dynamic was like something like felt really genuine and like very deeper, because it's like, all right, here's two sisters, like these are family members, trying to sort out their differences on national television, whereas like, for example, you take someone who like, I don't know, sent like a stupid Snapchat, or I don't know, what was someone had like a really like stupid reason as to why they were bad bloods, and it might have been like Jordan and Oriana.
Yeah, honestly, I really would not be able to recall that, and honestly, a lot of that season, I would say, besides like the general idea that I have of it, like looking back, and I know that your brain does this when you experience like traumatic incidences, it almost like won't let you recall it. And I know that we were also drinking like completely, on like just nowhere near the amount that you should be drinking. Your brain is actually, transforming when you're drinking every day like that. So, I really couldn't even recall whatever drama that those people had in the house. I will say that, what that they had showed in the storylines that had consisted, that they showed on TV, it was so much more interesting what went on in the house. Like what they showed, it was just, the story editors, I don't know what they had going on there. Yeah.
That seems to be a recurring pattern too. I mean, I chatted with one of your other previous cast members, Anika. She said that a few of her tiffs were left off the cutting floor, if you'd call it that.
They had 24 hours of footage, 7 days a week for 2 months straight. And, so many of the times I'm watching myself with the audience, because a lot of it is, they're going to do with the footage, which best fits whatever storyline that they have going on. The storylines that they had in the house, there's just so much else going on. If you're living with 14 people, and I say, just those 14 people, just imagine the cast member, or not the cast members, the people that are recording you. I can't even think of the name right now, but the cast we're the cast. What are the people that are the ones that are recording?
The
the production crew. Yeah, like the production crew. Like you're in the house with, minimum 25 people like all the time. There's just a lot going on. There's so much going on. Yeah.
And that's what I said. There was so many moving parts that it was very hard for, fans to get invested in one storyline if like there's so many, like 14 people in a house at one time is just like it's really unrealistic to think that like every single cast member there is going to get like either the equal amount or the proper amount of shine as a cast member.
Yeah, it was, I don't want to say that we got jacked in that season, but I mean, we watched it and we're like, this is what you got out of what we gave you, but there were some nights where I just remember, I'm like, how are they going to fit this all in one season? And it's like, they're not. They're not.
It was just messed up because like it wasn't even like they were transcending anything either, because like 3 out of the last 4 seasons or 2 out of the last 3 seasons before that they had done like twists where people came in. So I mean
it was, we could have had a really monumental season. And like looking back, especially like what's been going on in our world, we lived literally next to the police station in Chaz, where's the autonomous zone in Seattle, in Capitol Hill, where these people were the first ones to make sure that their police were out because they knew that they caused more problems than, the good that they were supposed to achieve. I mean, that is our society, and just having the police address everything. And, I'll get into that, probably down the road if we ever do this again. But, we were there boycotting the police, or protesting the police 4 years ago, and and that was pretty significant, and then look, they actually separated and got rid of their police. So defunded the police, but it was just created their own little town there, and it was their own little town. And we lived in this place in Seattle called Capitol Hill. And I mean, as far as the community, the culture, like the art, there was very few places that actually really wanted to even let us in and film. And, that was something, I would go off camera and, so when it was just yourself, and I would get to know the staff at the places that I would frequent, and then, ask them, be like, hey, would you mind, like, if you were to sign this, waiver and allow me and my other cast members to come in here? It was like, you had to let them get to know you, because the perception of what they have is that you're just going to be, just wild or whatever that they have. They weren't welcoming and accepting. But it's always a person by person basis. We had met many welcoming and accepting people in Seattle.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into that the Seattle setting in a bit. I wanted to ask now, since we were talking about the backstory as to why you and Katrina were paired together for this show, I'm curious, like, where do you and her stand today?
I mean, Katrina and I, it's as far as hot and cold, but as today, we are not talking. And, a lot of the times for Katrina, I would say it would be more so she wants to say that she doesn't want to talk to me. And for me, I use it as a break, because my role in Katrina's life is literally just a caretaker. I'm there for her. I will always, not saying accept her, of course, and be her biggest and number one supporter. But I think that she needs to have that breakthrough. And I think a lot of for us, when we have this breakthrough, is when we feel most alone. And, I can't be there for her and support her. She just really needs to have that growing up moment, I guess. So, I mean, I don't think until Katrina is really ready to accept accountability for her actions, and things that she said as a person, because it's just not something that I support. And I think but I'll be right there the moment she's ready to say I'm sorry, and not even so much as I don't even care about the sorry that I do. It's more the acknowledgement of her actions, and that she wants to be a better person, that I know she has it in her to be, because she is a beautiful person with an incredible heart. It's just, finding healthy ways to process how we feel is so important. And I know growing up, we weren't taught to find healthy ways to process how we feel. This has been a whole process and, learning for me for the last 4 years. I say, actually, I think I wouldn't even recognize the word depression. Like, I didn't even like saying it. I'm just a naturally happy person. So for me, even admitting that I was depressed was like huge for me. And I think really, trying to figure out where it started, I want to say, it was like a 4-year depression I didn't even know I came out of. And it literally came from the real world. It's like your traumas and experiences. But the entire situation was really traumatic for me, and, never made our relationship any better. That's for sure. I definitely believe that, we're owed at least therapy at the minimum, because they brought up all of these issues and put us in situations to where, it was not just toxic, but without any resolution. So it was, just, I don't know, pouring salt in wounds, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and it seemed like, you two kind of, for at least the second half of the season, were kind of off doing your own thing for a while. Like you guys were a bit isolated from the rest of the group. Would you say like it was because you guys were, I don't know, just trying to mend your relationship, or did you not think that in a setting outside of that show you would really get off with the people in that house?
I mean, for the first time in our lives, not all our lives, but, since childhood, me and Katrina are put back into a house together. And when you're in that type of situation, like, I look back all the time, like, how did I just, like, go into a restaurant with all of these camera crews and just, like, I love soup, so I just, like, use the example of soup, like, just eat soup by myself with, like, everybody staring, because now I have like such anxiety about being the center of attention. And, I know that I was able to do it because I had my sister there. And, for us, it was an instant thing, it was like, we are always going to have each other's backs. Like, we're always going to, so it was like, we did have a lot of time to, I wouldn't say that we also isolated ourselves, because, we formed friendships, and, you're there for 2 months, and people, we had totally separate, opposite, schedules than the other crews. I was up at 8 a.m. going to the, grocery store, get my breakfast, going to the gym, then going to Sephora, doing my makeup, coming back, taking a nap, all before the kids are even up. And, by the time, and, they, not saying didn't want to spend any money, but, we had a $300 a week per diem, and they would save their money. And like, for me, we're living in Seattle, where your juice and bagel next door is $40. Like, there was no way we were saving money, and I just wanted to enjoy the experience. So, we would go out more often than they would. They stayed home a lot. And then, when we would come back from the clubs, from going out at night, I'm getting up at 8 a.m., I'm not going to sit. And a lot of that's when a lot of the toxicity and problems and fights would start, was when everybody had been out, everybody had been drinking, when they'd stay at home and have nothing to do. And a lot of it I would just avoid. So, we didn't bond in the moments that, I'm telling you, I'm very huge on energies. And there was a lot of toxicity in that house, a lot of it.
So is there anybody you could have potentially seen yourself being friends with outside of that environment?
Well, I mean, Kim and I are still friends. Kim and I are definitely friends. Anika, when you said you did an interview with her, like, I just literally idolize Anika. She is literally Oprah. She is the most amazing, incredible individual, such a strong woman, and, I love having conversations with her. So, I mean, we don't talk as often, it's just one of those things that, in time, but I'm sure that I can call Anika right now and we can have a 2-hour conversation easily. She was always there for me. She's an amazing person. Will, her counterpart, oh my God, like, adored that guy. I don't think I would have made it through the house if I didn't have Will to be an ear and somebody for me to talk to. Let me see. Or Lana and Jordan, they were a little bit younger, and I'm the kind of person to where, and Lana had a crush on, a few of the guys, Cass, and like, even Cass and I were close, and, I would say that Cass and I were probably, we were actually pretty close in the house, and it, kind of made Lana jealous. Theo was also portrayed to be just this, such a nice guy on the show, but Theo was probably the one that picked on me the most. And, as far as welcoming, like, he was the least welcoming in the house, and he never made me feel comfortable around him, because he was just mean. He was just, like, flat out mean. T, like, I love T. She was amazing. I really should reach out to her, because she was just a sweetheart, like, had, pure heart. And, you could tell that she had probably been judged and had went through some things, because she had that wall up. Jordan and I are still friends, but, like, we didn't even develop our friendship until basically, like, the last week or two out of the house, when she realized, I think that for her too, I don't know what her and Katrina had going on, but Katrina had pretty much fought with everybody in the house before I got there. So Katrina was actually really happy to have me there. And like, that was kind of something that I was afraid that was going to happen. I was always the peacekeeper. Like, nobody wanted to pay for a maid service. So I was always the one, doing dishes, cleaning up, like, just keeping it normal, because I would fight over it instead of doing it. And for me, I would go in my mind and go to my happy place and, just be okay that everybody isn't going to be fighting over this. And I was really, one of the older people in the house. I would tell MTV all the time. I was like, you guys casted the wrong person, because they would want, somebody who's going to be petty and, and not even so much as petty, but I want somebody to be, I'm really over dramatic naturally, but like not in a way that is like self-serving. They would want me to be like, talk about how hard you have it. And like, and I'd be like, well, living in Seattle, I just walked past a woman and her children living on the streets. Like, I don't have it hard, so it's like, you're not going to get that out of me. I am living in a $50,000 a month loft in Seattle being like catered to, it's not, I don't have it hard. I'm blessed. I'm grateful for this. So.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the nightlife in Seattle?
Oh my God. Yes. The nightlife in Seattle is amazing. And it's so much fun. So much fun. I've actually reached out to like a few of the like venue owners like over the years, and I had a thing for dating DJs. And they were always, welcome. Yes, please. Whenever you come, please come back. We'll make sure that we can have like, an appearance set up or something, because like I said, a lot of the places didn't really, welcome us. So the few that did, they loved us, they developed those relationships with us. They, just really, I loved the nightlife. We had many friends that were outside of the cast members. Another thing too, is that my sister and I, we had a lot of friends outside of the house, we weren't just making relationships with the cast members in the house. It was other people as well.
So you got to go on any bar appearances post-show?
You know what? I never actually went back to the city of Seattle, but, I reached out and would be well receptive if I chose to do that. Like I said, I've been on a mission the last 4 years. Like, I've lived in these terrible, conditions in Florida during the summertime, because I know that I need to put in the work that it takes in order to get where I need to go. So as much as I'd love to go visit Seattle, just a little bit longer. But actually, my business partner is really funny too. For one of my So Good Farms ventures, one of my business partners was actually a PA on the show. So it's just blessing my life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of your dynamics a little more, though. Of course. So we kind of saw like one of the bigger storylines of the season kind of snowball towards the end with, obviously, we had the whole incident with Jen and then Peter, of course. I want to like kind of bring it back to the beginning, because a lot of like your problems with Katrina, it seemed like stemmed from the fact that like she would never approve of like any guy figures that were in your life or something around.
Who wants to approve of Peter, like in the kindest way possible? But that guy had a lot of issues, and mainly processing his emotions properly. Like, he used alcohol and didn't know how to communicate and properly, so it just took it out on other people around them. People do that, especially people who were abuse other people. And it was something that I had witnessed and that I had known and I had recognized. But I mean, it's still traumatic even looking back at it. And even, Peter and I in our relationship currently, I wouldn't call it a relationship, but I will say I just don't like being on bad terms with anybody. And yeah, sorry, I don't even know where we even are. We repeat the question?
Yeah, I was kind of curious because, it seemed like Katrina would step in whenever, there was a guy figure in your life. I was curious because we saw how it snowballed with Peter, but I was more curious about what happened in the beginning that made you distant.
Okay. Me and Peter talked for 2 days, literally 2 days, and they turned that into a 6-episode romance. I remember when we first watched the episode, we were all in LA, and it was all of the cast members, and the episodes are being, we actually watched it up until the 6th episode, and Jen and Peter were in a full-blown relationship, like literally since then. And since the second day, I was like, no, my Peter, no. And like, I encouraged that relationship, like literally encourage it, because I was like, I just wanted him to get away from me, But and I just remember watching it, and I know it just had to kill Jen because it was it made it look and appear as if we were in a relationship, and we never were. And also a lot of the editing too, like pretty much everything, I think in order to be able to make it look like more of a relationship, they actually had edited. And this was another thing with edited when I saw the questions, when it was like, are you happy with the editing? You know what? I'm okay. I'm at peace with the editing. I know for myself, like I'm a great person, and put in these situations, if they have to edit me and, and like the person's best actions, me at my worst, and totally put it around, and like, a lot of this is out of like the time sequence that it happened. Like they actually flipped the entire script. Like when I was like welcoming, like, and it looked like I was like, giving Peter the okay and heads up, like it was, me cutting things off with Pete. Oh my God, it was all, the script was flipped pretty much, and they had to do it to make the other people look like decent. And like here I am, still just, being myself. But I don't even know where I got with that. What was the question?
No, I was curious, like how you ended up like breaking things off. Was that totally your call breaking it up, or did Katrina have a hand in that? Like, why in the beginning, before all those like kind of outbursts by him, did you decide?
There was a creep in the nicest ways possible. Look how he treated Jen. Like red flag. Like that didn't come out, and I recognized that pretty quickly off the bat. He had spoken to me one night like that, and I was like, oh, and he wanted to fight and do the same thing, and I was not having it. And then that was the night, like literally that night when he tried to do his like fighting thing that he would always do with Jen, like with me, like literally the second night. Oh, you know what? You're actually making me recall this back too. But yeah, and there's this another thing too, is like, the day that me and Katrina, it looks like we're having a heartfelt moment over Peter, we are losing a loved one. Like we literally had lost somebody that was, basically in our family. And, we just kind of kept to ourselves. And then I think Peter was like mad about that and couldn't even comprehend as to why I would want to lean on my sister in that moment, and then tried to start a fight with me, and then was like kissing Jen in the confessional. And like that all happened the same night. And so I was like, hey, you guys go for it. Like I'm like actually really excited about this. Like, I want nothing to do with you. Like, go ahead. And then like the next day was like when we had that like, breakup talk. And I was just telling him like, kind of, he just didn't even get it. I was like talking to a wall. And so I know too, because like watching the script and editing back, like we're all there. We all know when that happened. And Jen was there too. And here he is, trying to salvage whatever the 2-day relationship we had. Like, she knew right then and there that like, she was like his next option. Like, and I never wanted anything really to even do with Peter at the beginning. Like, and I know it may have seemed more than that, but it was a stressful moment. Like we were coming in, we were literally in like an RV and like van that we had, it was no tricked out van either. Like you'd assume that MTV would put you in. It was, when we had got there, I think there was like 4 beds in the van, and 2 of the guys had taken both queen beds. So Cassius and Will had taken 2 queen beds. So there was 2 twin beds left and 1 queen. So like, it was kind of like, Lana and Kim took the 2 queen beds, or 2 twin beds, and there's 1 queen bed left. So it was like, Peter, Jen, and I were like basically left to stay in the bed together. And it was like the first night, like we, just stayed up talking. Like it was just, I didn't know what to expect. Mike was his counterpart. Peter had already been on some reality TV show before. Like, it was just me kind of getting like, what's going on. And it was clear and evident. And this has kind of happened a lot in my life, like guys, they just come on like way too strong, way too fast. And like, as far as myself, not even saying not know how to slow it down, but like I was just in a situation to where I did not feel in control over, and I think I allowed somebody else to take control of that situation. I can't even remember really looking back, but I remember even like the whole kissing scene outside. That was like the only time I ever kissed him, and I felt pressured like the entire moment. I was like in a corner on our stoop. And it was just, there's nothing good about that. I wouldn't even call it a relationship. I would call it literally escaping the grasp from an abusive man, is what you witnessed.
Yeah, and you had that kind of moment of the season in a way that like got the whole house shook up with the a lot of fans still
Google search, yeah,
Google
literally.
search the Google search heard round world, we'll call it
Oh
that.
my God. And you know what? Because like now I do coding and like I cannot tell you how many times they say in the real world and Google is your best friend. And I'm over here just like, do you guys like want to torture me? Like I can't even imagine, I looking back at it, even the fact that I, was trying, that was a 2-week fight. And I knew that Jen just wanted anything to fight with me because she had so much pent up aggression. Like it was clear, that the feelings that she felt towards me, she wanted something from Peter that he was incapable of giving her. And I think it was just, he wanted to be with me and, taking it out on Jen. And like the whole structure of it was just so unhealthy, so incredibly toxic. And they were looking for any outlet, even an outlet to the fact that we have a community computer and I'm literally a Google search. I had nothing to do with anybody. I'm pretty sure they went through the Google history. It wasn't like I left it up on screen either. I would never leave something up like that on screen. Like, so it was just they were looking for something like, and they're gonna even to take that personally, that says way more about you in the situation than it does me. If you're gonna see a search and then take it that offensively, like that says that you have the problem, you identify with it. And I will stick to, at the end of the day, like, even speaking to me, I'm sure you see that I like to be educated about what I'm speaking upon. And if I'm going to, if I'm in a situation that I'm pretty sure this is what it is, I'm going to look up so I have these like facts to identify and like confirm these strong feelings that I'm having. So, domestic abuse, verbal, it was clear with like the MTV sign, the, afterwards, the hotline abuse, that's exactly what it was. And, I still even think that, I don't even want to say I'm the victim at the end of the day, but like, even the fact, like, even when we were standing was like our closet area where I could not get past her. That was 45 minutes of Jen not letting me go to sleep and get past her because she just wanted to reiterate over and over again, why did you Google search it? And I'm repeating why I'm Google searching it to her and she's not accepting my answer. Like the whole, to say that was abusive would be like the minimum. Like even the producers like didn't even for a second like, even question as to whether or not I'm getting off the show, because I'm sure looking back at the footage you could see that like I literally just wanted to walk past her and go to my room. And like also I will say that like I am such a mirror of other people. Like I will, I feel so much that like I literally give you what you want in a way, and those are mirror neurons. It's something that we all do. It's just a human phenomenon. And like to say that even but I was out of my mind pushing Jen, but I think that that's exactly what I gave her what she wanted from me, to where she was going, because even to even go there and say, because I'm not a physical fighting person in my entire life like that, even to have that up there as like the main segment part of like even on TV in a moment that you have to relive. And I think it speaks for itself that she wanted that moment more than I, because, she has reposted it on Twitter. Like my aunt was involved, and as far as like the Twitter drama afterwards and like keeping up with the cast members and what was going on. And she is still so furious with Jen because like over the years, it's like the proudest moment that she can look back on. Like this is something that she's proud of. And, as far as, people, and when they're in relationships, they attract each other. There's a reason why these people are together. You're not just there because, you guys are mirror reflections of one another. Jen herself is not saying a victim, yeah, she may have just let him yell at her and stuff, but she, herself, they're not all there in the kindest way. They're very hurt people. They've obviously been traumatized. Like I said, abused people abuse. So I'm sure that they were abused at their time, but they were absolutely abusive.
So was that Google search, was that you trying to, convey or send a message as to that was what you thought was taking place? Was that domestic verbal abuse, or was that just trying to get under his skin?
Absolutely not. There was nothing that I did to try to get underneath anybody's skin, I actually thought that she needed a friend, in those moments of time. And like I said, it was a Google search. I wasn't expecting somebody to go out of their way and literally take it as offensively as she did, go out of their way to look up the history and then take it, and then for them to, I would never even assumed in a world of like like actual, sane people to even take it offensively in that way towards themselves. I think that the fact that she did says, how prevalent it was and how the truth behind it. It was just, like I said, me educating myself. If I had my cell phone, nobody would have ever known. If I'm going to speak on something, I want to be educated on the subject. And like I said, I had a heavy hunch that this is what was going on, and I needed like that confirmation from another source, that was viable, to just agree with me, to confirm that this is what I'm experiencing. So absolutely not. The last thing I wanted to do was get underneath anybody's skin. And, for 2 weeks, they were looking for an excuse to fight with me for anything, and that's all she could find.
And we saw it, obviously, you just alluded to it before, with the big push scene, of course. You don't feel like you and her would have been fine had Peter not been there?
I'm sure, absolutely, because I don't think that he would have, been that one in the rift. I think that we were talking about before about comparing ourselves to other people. I think that when you aren't self-loving, and it was very evident that Jen had an extreme issue loving herself, you feel like others, you feel like you do have to compare yourself to other people, and it's unfair to compare yourself to other people. Especially, it's unfair to compare yourself to me. I'm naturally just like a super athletic person. I'm naturally really happy. The center of attention comes to me. It's not anything that I seek. And I think that people who want this and it comes naturally for other people, it could get under their skin. So, usually people, and like I'm somebody who likes to build other people up. I would never want to break anybody down. I think that that's like a sad person who does that. So for Jen and I definitely do think would have been friends, because I think we would have had a completely different relationship. I think that she would have learned from me, and I think that I would have even had the opportunity to build her up. You even saw when it was like braiding the hair that she took it. Peter took it offensively, and that was pretty much the only moments that we would even have together. Was these moments that that's it.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of that anger maybe stemmed because you feel like he wanted you, not Jen?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it became evident, I think it was evident the entire time, that it was, he would have preferred to be with me, and it got under her skin, and it wasn't the right person for her. They're not together today, it's just because we were put in that house and they both wanted somebody to be there for each other. And I think that they were just there for each other in ways that were negative.
So did you get the option to send her home after she had pushed you, or?
I mean, I honestly cannot even recall, but I remember, that they asked, are you willing to sit down and have a talk and discussion with Jen? Because, it was pretty clear that they didn't want to put us back in the house together if we were going to have that type of animosity towards one another. And, it was never a question as to whether or not send me home, regardless of who put their hands on another or not. This was very aggressive situation that, like I said, went on for 45 minutes, even though it may only be for a few moments of me please begging her pretty much to let me just go to my room and go to sleep, and giving her the same response over and over again that she was unwilling to take. And my story never changed the entire time, because it was the absolute truth. And I forgot what the question was again.
Was
they gave me permission to send her home. I mean, like I said, I wanted her to have this experience. Peter was going to go home regardless. That was, it was complete total instigator in the situation. He should have went home, weeks before that, because he was just, the yelling scenes and abuse, that's what he did every night. And that is, it was just nobody wanted him around. The cast member, or the production crew, the cast members, he wasn't a welcomed person in the house. And I think that was evident through the projection of what he had placed onto, me and my sister, was nobody wants you here, blah, 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 blah. I mean, he's not, he's not wrong, but it's him. Nobody wants me here, and blah. And that's what, narcissistic, troubled people do, is they place projections onto other people.
Yeah,
but I was welcome arms the entire time to Jen. I was forgiving from the moment that, that happened, because I knew that she had all this pent up, and I'm always the person anyways, I always, not saying gets the shit end of the stick, but I'm so blessed, like within all that I have around me and my abilities, because I could be the bigger person. So it was, I never for a moment had any animosity. Even still to this day, don't have any animosity towards her. And I can't even tell you how many talks that we had afterwards where it was, she forgave me and stuff, but then still will repost that, video or clip of her pushing me, and it's just, it's clear that she doesn't. And when you hold resentment in your heart, it's you're drinking poison expecting somebody else to die. Like, I don't have any of that, and it's evident that she does.
Did that push contribute to any of the traumatic experiences you've been feeling post show at all, or was that not one of them?
I mean, oh God, how can you say that push wasn't, traumatic? But I do want to say it was probably one of the least traumatic experiences that I had to deal with on that TV show. Like, and it's just the whole overall situation of being on TV. The producers, I can't even tell you, the casting process of, I can't even tell you how many times they asked, am I going to go on the show with my sister? And every single time it was like a sure look you in the eye response, like, absolutely not. They will lie to you. And when you are lied, and I'm just somebody that takes everything as face value, if you're telling me something, I'm going to believe it, because that's just, literally what normal people do and think. I'm not saying I'm normal, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to expect or assume somebody's lying. I think that's something that a liar would have, is just assume that, but, naive, absolutely. Like, and I think, somebody with a good heart who's naive and is being placed in these situations where, it's not what you ever think it is, and it's not what you expect. That's just at the bare minimum of, the trauma. But for me, I've always been somebody who's controlled the situations that I've placed myself in. And a lot of those situations, it's at somebody else's control. And even down to while we were filming, like I said before, walking around with cameras in a public setting, and especially in a city that, the people aren't really receptive of you because of their tight-knit culture and like what they believe of the mainstream media and what produces in the world. And, and everybody in their own way will want their own little like tidbit on television. So there's just a lot of times that it was just people screaming things, and like I say, that it was almost like you're treated like animals, like, in a cage. Like, there's a lot. For the first, I was always a very independent person, and you had to ask somebody if you wanted permission to open up the front door, and because I want to see what the weather's like outside, so I know how to dress, and like constantly explaining yourself was something that I wasn't even used to doing. So like I had to like retrain myself, and like you could see it was evident within our behaviors of like getting off the show. Like, my sister and I would like whisper to each other, and there'd be nobody else around, and like just those things that like I never thought people would pull out their cell phones, and I'm assuming that they're videotaping me. And so yeah.
Was the show the first time that you felt this way?
Yeah, there's no other way that you could, other situation that you could even begin to compare it to. I will say, like, what I took away the most, which I'm so grateful for, like I'm incredibly grateful for that entire experience, and like I always take everything that happens to me as like totally fate, absolutely meant to be. And like I learned from my situations, and I'm able to empathize with other people who may have been in similar ones. What was the question?
Yeah, I was asking, like, was TV, your experience there, the first time you had those kinds of emotions?
Yeah, and I think if, I had them before, they were absolutely amplified then. And I think a lot of the time, especially like traumatic situations, like when it's happening to you, like you don't even realize how traumatic it actually is. It's almost like looking back and like, wow, like, I can't even believe I had the strength to be able to get through it. So, and then, even being in there, because, for the majority of the time, it was a blessing. This experience was one of a kind and just absolutely amazing. Like, we have to live in a $50,000 a month loft, and for the most part, get to know some incredible people, and, given some situations and that, most people would never even be placed in. And yeah, with the good, always there's going to be the people who are little stinkers and, throw their hate in a way or another. But, I'm okay, and it's easy for me to rise above it. I think afterwards, being on a public national platform and being subjected to the thoughts and opinions of others were harder on my sister than it was me. But, there are situations like I, went to the gas station and I Googled my name and on Twitter and Real World, and it was like something that was like I felt compelled to do at that moment. It wasn't, something that I did constantly. And it was like an hour before that, somebody had seen me at the gas station. And I was just like, if you Googled my name, my address came up. And like, I never really felt safe. So, I just felt like, I just really just wanted to, like, not saying to necessarily start over, but like, I didn't want to be known for this whatsoever. I mean, like I said, I just feel like I have so much more substance in my character, and I'm going to do such greater things at like this time in my life, when, really, truly, honestly, I was there for my sister and doing so. Like, the first thing I said to my sister is, if you don't want me to be here, like, I will go home. And the first thing, she was grateful and thankful to have me there. And it kind of resorted back to the childhood where, I'm just there supporting Katrina the whole time. And,
Yeah. And I'm curious too, and I think a lot of people are as well that are going to be listening to this, because they would probably agree in the aspect of like you and your sister were one of the or two of the more memorable or ones that provided substance to that season. Why we didn't see you on a challenge, or either of you for that matter? Were there any close calls?
I mean, yeah, it was one of those things to where, like, having to put myself back on television, I just couldn't even try to even get myself in the mind frame. Like, how am I going to go sleep next to, other strangers in bunk beds and be subjected to where, like, they can actually physically throw me around? And, like, I'm somebody, like I said, if you have, like, inner demons, like, I am somebody who's going to you're just going to not, most people, good people, really, really receive me well, but those who have things that they need to work through, I don't, and, who aren't okay with themselves, I rub them a completely other way. And there's just, some of the older cast members, like Jem, I believe, I don't even really want to say their names and like think that I'm giving them any type of spotlight, but these are people who are just like negative, and are hating on, for somebody who came through the same platform that you're coming through for no reason necessarily other than you just have nothing else better to do. And like, I just didn't want to be in a house with people who didn't have anything else better to do than this. And it was a huge problem for my sister because, she thought that the Real World was going to be a completely other, different story of how it was turned out. Like, Katrina thought she was going to be famous from this. And, unfortunately for her, that wasn't the case. And a lot of the dynamic that we had, they really liked us together. And, I really just couldn't bring myself after really, digesting what I went through, putting myself back out there again. I think that if I were to want to go on a challenge, I think that, I'd be well received. And I think that if I actually put a little bit of effort behind it, because there was like other TV shows that they had, interest in my sister and I being on, that I was okay. Like, okay, I would consider this because I don't think I'm putting myself in that vulnerable of situation. But like, it was just even putting myself on camera and, giving them the casting tape that they wanted. I just really could not bring myself to do it. And I think because so many people receive you differently, a lot of people, especially those who watch reality television, it's an escape from their own lives, and all they know how to relate to in you is what they see in themselves. So it's, this dynamic where a lot of people are just self-projecting their own issues onto you. And, for the most part, I mean, I'm telling you, I actually got I was received pretty well, and I think that actually bothered Katrina more because people would say, you are like the only sane person in a sea of crazy, and like and that would bother Katrina. And I had a lot of people reach out over like the incidents of speaking up for Jen when they felt like a lot of other people were just kind of, ignoring it. And that's what happened in that house. You kind of just kept your nose down and ignored what was going on. And like, it was just one of those things where it was like, come on, like we can't, like who, like, come on, like not saying we can't even sleep in the house, but like, come on, security. Like you already know that these guys, like these people in the house would fight over the amount of pizza rolls they had at 3:30 in the morning. Like petty fights, and security would be out there for it. But this guy can yell at a girl for hours on end and like nobody's present. And like I think it makes a huge difference when you have a guy there, like to make sure that you're checked, like you're gonna think. But it was almost for Peter, it was like a stage for him. And like his he really wanted to be able to have that attention. And I think a lot of the times like the cameras fed that attention. So I don't blame MTV in the same way, because the producers were only making their best judgment decision. But, when he got the cameras out on him and they were, right in his face, he loved it. So it was, maybe they just didn't want to encourage him. I don't know. But I had a lot of people that reached out and they were like, I can't even tell you how many different times people just walked past me or, my loved one being abused and see you standing up, like, knowing that there was help on the way, like really, like they were just thankful for it. So, and I was thankful for that too.
Did you think that there was a lot of people on your season that were, acting differently for the cameras?
I think everybody in a way. I would say, Anika was true to herself. Will was true to himself. Kim was true to herself. A lot of the other people were okay with having, like, it's like it's same thing like Katrina. They had this perception of how they're going to be perceived in their minds and almost like this character. And, I'm so authentically me. I don't know how to be any other way. And, so yeah, absolutely. I think that people had it in their minds and, who they were going to play in the role, especially Mike. Like, Mike is a friend of mine. I haven't talked to him in years, but I still know that, like, Mike, we could chill and we'd have a fun time. But, like, king of just, like, there's just, he thinks he's the master of every situation. He thinks he's this mastermind that's this ploy and creating things, but he's really not.
So how many challenges, did you get called for?
Well, I think that they were going to have like a Bloodlines challenge. And so it was that one, obviously. I don't think they would do a Bloodlines without us. And then I can't even remember because it was so long ago. But I will say that Fassi, do you know who he is on the Challenger? Yeah. So I knew Fassi before he had even done Big Brother. I told him it would be a good idea for him to do Big Brother. And after Big Brother, I was like, you got to hit up the girl with the challenges. So I passed on along the information to him for the girl with the challenges. And I actually don't watch the challenges, but I think he's doing pretty well. Yeah, no, I know he's on his 3rd season. So, but I don't know his character, like if he's a good competitor. I'm sure he is because he's a big guy, But I will take credit for that.
Yeah, he owes you his paycheck.
Yeah, tell him that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the challenge that you're referring to was supposed to be the 2nd edition of Bloodlines, and then they ended up changing the format to Vendetta. They changed
it like last minute, yeah, because my sister was really excited about it.
So you two were slated to be on that then before the change?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, for sure. And Marie and her sister as well. Because Marie is one of my good friends. I love Marie. I adore Marie. I think that as far as somebody who is like most like me, it's Marie for sure. And then also Abram is a good friend of mine in business. Like he's really helped me out like tremendously. He introduced me to like one of my biggest supporters, a woman from Silicon Valley who just, extremely believes in me. Couldn't be any more thankful for that. We met in Montana. Actually last year around this time. So, and I know Cara Marie hated that. And Kayla was friends with my sister before they both ever went on TV. They were both all from the same area. So Kayla, I'm friends with Kayla's ex-boyfriend, Mikey. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I had him on before.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, no, Mikey's a wonderful guy. Yeah. Great guy. Yeah.
I've had Mikey, I've had Abram, Cara has been on here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was curious. I did run into a thing that said that you and Cara a few years ago had like some little social media tiff. What was that all about?
Well, so before, like I said, I was supposed to go on the show Road Rules. Before, I went on, I reached out. I remember the first episode I watched, it was Abram. And this was years ago. I'm going back to like my 14-year-old self. And I remember watching it and like he always just like stuck with me. And so as I heard I was going to go on Road Rules, I reached out to him, let him know I was going on the show. No response, anything, go on the show World. Afterwards, I guess, he had responded to my social media in that time. He was like, that's so crazy, blah, blah, blah. And, Abram and I, like I said now, like Abram's been a very positive influence in my life as far as, I'm working creating So Good Farms. And a large part of So Good Farms is hemp. And, I've been an advocate of hemp for like the last 2.5 years. Like I said, the PA on the show, Nahale, is one of my business partners. It was so, it's funny how everything works, and I know it all happened for a reason. And I just think same thing. Cara Marie is just one of those people. I don't think that she's really okay with herself. It's those people that just really, truly, it's self-love at the end of the day. And when you love yourself so much, nobody else's opinion matters of you. And I think you compare yourself to other people. And I think within comparing yourself to other people, you may possibly feel threatened. And I think that that's exactly what happened with Cara. She just felt threatened. But I would be friends with Cara. I liked Cara, it's just people just hate on me because they feel threatened, and those are the type of people. And MTV has a knack for putting these type of people because they are entertaining.
So you don't see, or would you see yourself going on the challenge now if given the opportunity?
If it worked out in my life and the timing was okay, I think that I am mentally, emotionally, physically strong enough to be able to go on a challenge. And, I think that if it got too much, I would just remove myself. I think that now I would have a frame of mind where I was knowing what I was going into, so I wouldn't be as gullible as I was before. And I think it would be another, a good experience for me, because the Rearwood was an amazing experience. Like I say, it really was the most traumatic I've ever been through in my entire life. But, that's I'm very blessed that is the most trauma I've ever been through in my entire life. And, so I just don't think I would have the same mindset coming in. I've had a lot of growth since then as well. So
it'd be kind of nice to get some real world blood back on this challenge now with kind of how they're taking a little bit of a different step in the casting department with shows they're pulling from. What is maybe your stance on how they're pulling from different shows now outside of the network?
I didn't even really ever have a stance, so I guess I'm gonna have to think about that. Let me take a sip of water. I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, especially with the ratings. I know that they were low, so by having pulling from other networks and having those core members that people wish to follow on a beloved TV show like The Challenges, I think that it's a good idea.
There was some rumor floating around that this season that's about to air in a couple weeks that Jordan from your season almost ended up on it, which came completely out of left field because I don't even know if she was called for any of the ones straight off of your guys' season.
I have no idea. I would have to check with her and see. I mean, she's a beautiful girl. She's a model. She's killing it out in, I want to say she's in California now. But, yeah, and she's a sweet girl. She was made for television. It would be a no-brainer to put Jordan on the TV show. So,
did you get any other opportunities outside of television after doing the shows, or?
Directly related to Real World?
After Real World, did you get any opportunities outside of television?
You mean television opportunities, or just
acting, anything like that?
Well, I've never been one to be a model or television or acting, so it wasn't anything that kind of sought its way out. But like I said, even just having Abram, introduce me to somebody who's been pretty life changing. Nahale being a PA on that show, who's now one of my business partners in a hemp venture that's going to actually change the world. I'll talk to you a little bit about hemp if you want. You got a few minutes?
Yeah, shoot, go ahead.
Do you know anything about hemp?
No.
We'll get ready for this.
Okay.
Yeah, because really, truly, this is our current state of economy. Everything could literally change within embracing hemp. Do you see my dog right now?
Yeah.
And call her my raccoon. So hemp is the only crop that can provide your food, your clothing, your shelter, and your healing. And within our food, it's a superfood. Working in genetics, I worked in many doctors' offices, and across every field of medicine, they'll tell you that your diet is your most important. It's your essential amino acids. It's your vitamins, your proteins. So it's really important to be able to have that. As far as clothing, it is naturally antimicrobial and antibacterial. It takes a fraction of the water that cotton would use, and cotton holds a huge amount of our world's pesticides. Can you hear me because of the TV, or is that making? Okay. As far as our shelter, using it for homes, it is mold resistant, fire resistant, which is huge right now in, California, and where everybody's being affected by wildfires. And you can replace many different industries, like, steel. It's 10 times stronger than steel. You can replace diesel fuel with it, and it grows like a weed. You can place the entire paper industry with hemp. If you just had 1% of our farmlands, you transform them to hemp, you could literally replace the entire paper industry. What you can have in 1 acre in 20 weeks of hemp would be the equivalent to 4 acres in 20 years of paper. And when you plant 1 ton of hemp, you have 1.6 tons of carbon absorption, which right now we need to absorb as much carbon as we possibly can. It renourishes the soil, which a lot of our farming practices have completely eroded our soil. And these industries, our clothing industry, our transportation industry, our construction industry, these are so incredibly wasteful in the world that we live that it would just make more sense in order to be able to embrace hemp. It literally grows like a weed, and that's why I emphasize the importance of processing. It has literally over 100,000 different usages. We wrote our Declaration of Independence on hemp. It used to be a law in the 1700s that you had to be able to grow hemp and pay your taxes in it. If you look back at us and our American culture and our military, it is literally because we had grown hemp and embraced it. And, so many industries would not be, I wouldn't say thriving, but like oil would not exist, plastic would not exist, paper in that industry, even you can replace carbon fiber with it. It's just lithium batteries. Hemp is a more better solution than lithium batteries. So they would not exist if we did not embrace hemp. So I knew it had to be processing centers. And another really important thing to me, is So Good Farms, finding a place for those with special needs. We have 1 out of 50 people who are being born with autism. We have going at a rate like we've never seen before. And their life expectancy is so much higher, or so much, they're expected, their life expectancy, if their family members don't take care of them, they pretty much are, I don't want to say being killed in society, but they're living longer only because of their family members are taking care of them. Only a third of them actually have access to the resources that they need to survive. And, those with autism are the geniuses of our society. It's just we're placing these labels on them and not giving them situations where we can flourish. I mean, this, is within everything else in our society. So we really need to be able to embrace hemp. And by So Good Farms being a live, work, play, agri-hood community for adults with special needs, and partnering with Biofiber Industries, which is Nahale's company that he founded, and he also founded Minority Hemp Builders Association. It just makes most sense to be able to embrace hemp and allow and just meet all of our needs most efficiently, pretty much, without harming the earth within doing so. And a lot of these industries, we have none of this domestic manufacturing infrastructure. This is everything that we source out to other countries. So it's like really important to ourselves that we do this or build it, create it, because I'm telling you, like, they think inflation is a thing, and it's like nobody's making our products anymore. This thing that we call money that we, all like fantasize over, it's not money is going to be the answer. It's, giving people the education and tools to be able to meet to the people's needs most efficiently. And we all need the same thing. It's like all need the same thing to live. And they've kept us from this, and they've had other people be biased and against it and keep other people from doing it. So I'm doing it. We are doing it. And yeah.
Well, it seems like you got everything that you're working on like very down pat, and it's clear what you're aiming towards.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this today and giving me your time. It was a pleasure meeting you, pleasure doing this, and maybe it was a bit of fun going back on memory lane just a tad, right?
Yeah, no, this was actually a really enjoyable experience for me, and I'm like really glad that I did it. Really glad.
Well, thank you again, and I'll let you know once it's up.
Yes, please. Thank you. Bye, Mike. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.